Well, the Panicans over on the left are absolutely all melting down and they cannot hide it anymore. As the Democrat Party, they've always pretended that they are the party of joy and they are the party of unity, that they are all one single voice. The four legs good, two legs bad. They will repeat whatever lie they need to over and over and over again. The problem for the Democrat Party now is that they have gone so far to the left that now they're finding nobody else in their corner. And they created the problem for themselves by going this far to the left on two sides. One with the American voters, where the American voters don't agree with anything that the Democrat Party stands for. I mean, they are literally on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue that they can be. You also have on the Democrat side, now they push so far to the left that now their next generation of Democrats, these ones are coming up or think that the older generation are not crazy enough. All right, and they think that the older generation is not communist enough. And they will use all these different isms that try to justify communism, but whether they call it socialism or progressivism or liberalism or activism, all these other isms, all they really are is repackaged Marxism, and it all directly leads to communism every single time. Now, the Democrats that they backed themselves into this corner, they have no way to figure out how to get out of it. They had earlier in this year, they had David Hogg, who they put in the vice chair of the Democrats Party, and then he was doing what the younger generation does. Okay, understand this about the next generation of Democrats who are more crazy than the ones who are in power right now. Okay, they think the Schumers of the world and they think the Hakeem Jeffries of the world, they think that they are not crazy enough. They think that they are not far left enough. Do not doubt me for a single second. All their actions show this. As Hogg was trying to bring up $20 million to primary Democrats. You remember that? And now Zohran Mamdani is doing very similar things here in New York. And this puts the Democrats in a very peculiar situation because on one, he is very popular with their side. So they can't do their normal attacks that they would normally do. They can't call him a racist or a bigot or a homophobe or any way try to slander him into silence like they would normally do. But he is also going against what the Democrat Party wishes. And they have no solution for this because they're not used to dealing with it. They're not like our side of the party where we are used to people having their own independent thoughts and their own independent ways that they want to go. It's a very different path for the Democrats than it is for the Republicans. And I'm loving every minute of it because they don't know how to respond. And we have Hakeem Jeffries here as he's going to go through and he's going to be asked a very simple question. You know, why are you not endorsing Zohran? You know, he's probably going to be the next mayor of New York. He is a Democrat. This is the largest city. You know, what are you waiting for? You know, what's wrong with endorsing the guy that wants to get you and your little buddies primaried? And listen how they can't answer the question. And so what is Hakeem Jeffries do? Well, here's the clip.
Has new reporting that some progressives who empowered Mamdani to victory now want to primary you and other Democrats in New York City.
I have no idea what these people are talking about. We are going to continue to focus our efforts as we did on the House floor in connection with Donald Trump's one big ugly bill on pushing back against the extremism that has been unleashed on the American people. The problem is Donald Trump and House Republicans who have launched this unprecedented assault on the American way of life, an assault on health care.
So you hear it right there for Hakeem Jeffries. And you wonder why the Democrats are all the way down to 17%, but probably lower. See, it's Donald Trump. But really, when he's saying it's Donald Trump, what he's really saying it is you. Because the Democrats, they have looked themselves as one person. If you have 51 senators vote for the Democrats. They have 218 House seats, 218 House seats vote for the Democrats. They're not used to this kind of infighting inside their own party. And what they would normally do with their slanders and their attacks are not working. So they're trying to switch focus over to the Donald Trump, but that is not going to work because Donald Trump is more popular now than he has been in the past. And you voted for everything that Donald Trump did. right? You voted for his economy. You voted for these tariffs. You voted to bring manufacturing back to the United States. You voted to build the wall. You voted to deport every single illegal alien from this country. And that's just the start. You also voted to drain the swamp and drain the federal government and bring power back to you, the American people, the way that their Constitution is supposed to work. Because the way this is supposed to work is you vote for your leaders. And then your leaders, they go to Congress and they do your will. But how often does that actually happen? Almost never. They usually do whatever the party wants or whatever the movers and shakers in Washington want. And this is all because they are one part of one big club. And you are not a part of that club. And this club, it is very exclusive to these people who are in Washington, D.C. These are for the movers and shakers. These are for the congressmen. These are for the deep states. This is not for you. And part of this club is that they believe that they rule over you. That is their job because they are smarter, because they have Ivy League degrees, because they have security clearances, that they know what's best for you. And in their minds, they shouldn't even have to have votes. I mean, why should you get to choose who is in power? You plebs, this is about social justice. And this is about DEI. And this is about how America has been far too good for far too long. And this is how there's been so many sins of the past that you will never be able to wash them away. See, capitalism in their minds is evil. And your freedoms are the problem. You shouldn't be able to vote your leaders in, and your leaders shouldn't be doing your will. You understand, even on our side, the Republican side, they don't want to fight back. Okay, they want this giant uniparty. Now, I call this the three-headed beast from the DC abyss. It also gets called the deep state, or it also gets called the blob. But my definition is much more accurate because it does have three heads. You have the first head is what we call the deep state. These are the unelected bureaucrats who actually run Washington. These are the ones who actually write the rules and regulations. No one voted for them. No one knows who they are. You can walk right by them and you wouldn't know them. But they are the ones with the real power. They are the ones with the real power because the second head, these unelected, these politicians who you actually voted in, don't want to be responsible. Okay, they want to go into Washington, they want to wear their fancy suits, and they want to wear their shiny shoes, and they want to do really nothing for Congress. They want to go meet the movers and shakers. They want to go to their fancy parties, and they want to get rich. They don't want to take risk. So that's why the deep state exists for them. So that anything ever happens, comes back, they can just write these very broad laws that the deep state basically writes for them, and then they pass. And then if anything ever comes back, they go, whoa, that's not me. I didn't do that. No, I'm just, a House member. I'm just a senator. Go talk to the IRS. Go talk to any of the other three-letter agencies that actually run the government. Talk to your politicians. See how that part works? And then you have the last part of the head. This is the mainstream media. This is the corporate media. And what we call fake news, or it'd be MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political Axios, every single one of them are in the bag for the Democrats. They are all Team DNC. And these people that call themselves journalists are none of those things. They are activists for the Democrat Party. And they are more than happy to lie to you, the American voters, to get you to come to a conclusion that you never would have came to if you didn't know any better. The main way that they lie to you is the very sneaky way, because it's not just a straight up lie most of the time, which would be very easy to prove. The type of lies that they deal in is they usually marry a truth with a lie. And a lot of times that lie they tell to you, what they do is they just won't tell you all the facts. Because if you knew all the facts, you would never come to the conclusions that they want you to come to. This is much worse, you see, than them just ignoring stories. This is them taking stories and then ripping out parts and only telling you the parts they want you to come to because they think that they are smarter than you. And they think at the end, just like every good little Marxist does, that it's the end result that matters, not the destination. And they don't think that you should be making up your own mind. And so they look at themselves as these activists, pretend to be journalists, as it's their job to tell you what to think. And now they're also in a very bad position because now these little activists, and they can't persuade people anymore, thanks to places like X, and thanks to places like Rumble and podcasts and the rise of these independent creators, they have lost all their influence. And now Democrats are almost down into single digits. So now they're panicking because they don't know how to bring it back. See, Donald Trump was never, ever supposed to come back. You had Chuck Schumer all the way back from Trump's first administration that said, the intelligence agencies, that they have 6 ways from Sunday to come back and get you. And as a very smart businessman, Donald Trump is very dumb to go against them. And that was proven to be wrong because they threw everything they had to try to take Donald Trump out. They did all the impeachment hoax 1, the impeachment hoax 2, the boxes hoax, the felonies hoax, the Gene Carroll hoaxes, the suckers and losers, the 9 bullets hoaxes, one hoax after another, and they were all completely made up. All the way back to Russia, 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 Russia. Now that they've been exposed, they have no understanding how to go backwards, and they don't understand how to keep these Democrats from fighting amongst themselves. And you have people even like Chuck Schumer who has to answer these questions, and he can't either. And so he actually goes into complete panicking mode as he just tries to do what Jeffries did earlier. Well, just blame Trump.
Of the Democratic nominee for mayor have been threatening primary challenges against Jeffries, other important Democrats in New York. Does that risk distracting Democrats from taking back the House and Senate?
The bottom line is Democrats are united. We are fighting the high costs that American people pay. We are fighting the health care cuts Republicans are making. We are fighting the horrible bill that they just passed. Democrats are united.
But they are not united. Not in the least bit. In fact, they're trying to primary their own people because the younger generation, they want a stronger, a more left, a more socialist, a more communist Democrat Party. They want the permanent deep state to stay in control. And they want the politicians to have not much power. And for the Democrats, this is perfect for them. As their side of the fence, as they see themselves, we call the liberal elites, is that they think that they have the right to rule over you. And because they have the right to rule over you, then they shouldn't have to face you, the American voters. It's so twisted and so anti-American, yet we're so close to finishing the communist revolution that they're not going to give up now. But they're doubling down on it on their own, to their own just collapse. We're going to find out a lot what happens in 2026 midterms. And I think normally these midterms are very bad for who's ever sitting president. But the Democrats, this is weird for them because they're so unpopular right now, and fake news can't help them. And really, they have no bench. Beyond everything else that they push so far to the left, that even the people that used to kind of be middle left are gone. And so that leaves them all with the most radical and weak leaders that they can come up with. I mean, it's so bad for them now that they're trying to run Jasmine Crockett and trying to push her up as one of their leaders. And to put all this together with fake news and the deep state and the Democrats, which you saw for the last 4 years with Joe Biden. And you watched his mental decline, and you watched him just get lost. And he couldn't do press conferences. He couldn't speak a sentence. And they lied for him for 4 years. And it wasn't until the debate came out that they finally were forced to admit that Joe Biden was gone. And even then, the mainstream media, see, if they would admit that, then they would have to admit also that they were covering him. So instead, Tappers and the others are trying to pretend that the White House lied to them and they just didn't know. But more problems with that for them. If the White House was just lying to the journalists, the so-called journalists, then there's either 2 things that happen there. Either one, they were willfully part of the cover-up, which seems to be the most likely, or they were too stupid to put 2 sentences together. and to fit together what was happening. We all saw the clips. We all saw Joe Biden wandering around aimlessly. And we all saw like the trans Easter bunny have to stop him from talking to the press and sending him down the road. Right? We saw him tripping over himself. We saw him falling. We saw that it was so bad that he would have to hold pamphlets and tell reporters, okay, I'm supposed to call on this reporter, and this reporter, they're supposed to ask this question, and then this is supposed to be the answer I'm supposed to give. And even then, he couldn't do it. Remember, foreign leaders would come over, and they'd sit down with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden would sit there literally with a card in front of his face, and he'd read off the card, mumble his way through it. But now they have like Jasmine Crockett now, who is pretending that Biden was just fine. It was just a stutter. And the real problem that they keep continuing to try to throw that's never going to work is that this was all Donald Trump's fault.
Concerns about the president's health and his mental acuity?
No.
None whatsoever.
I had none. Now, granted, I didn't see Joe Biden every single day, but I did have an opportunity to interact with the president. I never had a concern. If there's anyone that I am concerned about their mental acuity, it is the current occupant.
Okay, folks, she's blatantly lying, obviously. But in her mind, she is not lying. And I'm going to explain that now as the Democrats, as they look at themselves as the born rulers. And so when she says that the mental problems with Donald Trump, what she really means is Donald Trump is not doing what the Democrats want. To the Democrats, they were just fine with Joe Biden being not home, being no one in there, being lost in his closet, and wandering around and not be able to read. See, for them, because they want the deep state to rule over you, that was perfect. A puppet president. But Donald Trump is not that. He is not a puppet president. He is actually doing the one thing that they're most scared of. He is going and he is doing the will of the American people. I mean, he's not even a conservative. He was a lifelong New York Democrat until like the Democrats pushed so far, they pushed him out. And now Donald Trump is what the deep state scares the most. A billionaire populace. They don't know how to fix this, and they don't know how to turn this around. The Democrats are stuck in the past. They got so close to finishing their communist revolution in 2020 and 2024 that now they're watching it all slip away. But our fight to save our country is just getting started. And many are continuing to try to lie, pretend that there's something they're not, to join our side of the movement to interrupt it from the beginning, including a senator from the Democrat side, as he made a statement today that blows up. And I even saw conservatives going along with what he was saying. And we're going to cover that and a whole lot more right after this greedy profit break. You're not going to miss it. This is the CASHLOREN Show. We had earlier, right before we went to break, when we were talking about how there was a Democrat that was trying to pretend that they were on the side of the Republican Party. And this is coming from the usual John Fetterman. And to go through quickly what he said, and then we'll cover what is going on here. He was defending ICE earlier today, which we would all agree with. I think every single one of us would say that we need to defend law enforcement and we need to deport all these illegal immigrants, and that it is not okay to attack or assault law enforcement. And it's certainly not okay to try to defund them or remove them for illegal criminals. That all we would agree with. But when it comes to John Fetterman, and the thing that I think is blatantly obvious with him is he is not being honest. And the thing about John Fetterman is that he is very happy to just pretend to be a moderate. But do not doubt for a single second that his intent to be a moderate is just that. It is completely and utterly fake. And he has proven this over and over and over again. Yet we seem to fall for it every single time. If we had, let's say we had the Senate, let's do a test. And the Senate was 49-50, okay, to defund ICE. So there was, there was 50 Democrats that have voted no, right? And then there's 49 Republicans that have voted yes. John Fetterman is the last vote. Now, if he votes no, ICE stays funded. He goes against his party. If he votes yes, that's the tie, and J.D. Vance comes in, and J.D. Vance vote breaks the tie, and now ICE gets the billions of dollars, and ICE deports all these illegal immigrants that the Democrats want here in the United States. Okay, in that scenario, which way do you think John Fetterman votes? I think it's pretty obvious he would vote with the Democrats. And this is the thing about John Fetterman and his moderate Democrat act. Okay, he is just as woke and as crazy as loony as the rest of them. And he showed it earlier today. It's amazing how quickly people forget this. Is he said all the right things when Donald Trump came in the administration. And then when it came time to vote for Donald Trump's cabinet picks, every single time that John Fetterman could try to interrupt it, he would. But every single time that he knew that his vote couldn't stop it, he would vote with the Republicans. So see this is his pretending to be a moderate Democrat. And our side, unfortunately, is falling for it again. It's the same thing that happens with these rhinos. These rhinos will come in and they will say all the right things. They will go in front of a camera and make all these conservative statements. But then they go to Washington, D.C., and they vote for everything the Democrats want over and over and over again, unless they know they have no chance. And then all of a sudden they pretend like they're really strong, like constitutionalists, like a Thomas Massey. Or they pretend that they're going to get Fauci, like a Rand Paul. But what happens over and over and over again? Nothing of that ever happens. See, it's all just the same old act. It's all to make them look better. It's all to get them votes and to get them money. But when the chips are really down, when it really matters, they just go along with whatever the deep state wants. Thomas Massey is just an act two. Is to go through this real quick before we get into a whole lot of stories that we got to go through. Is he was the same thing, right? The constitutionalist, the no new debt. But what has happened ever since he has been in, he has always raised the debt. But when his vote didn't matter because the Democrats had the votes, he would vote against it, and he'd storm and he'd post on X and he'd say all the really cool things that everybody wanted. But then what happened? And in 2024, here comes the CR, and Thomas Massey voted for it. Voted twice for it when his vote actually mattered. See, all the times that he pretended that he was a strong constitutionalist conservative, when it really came down to it, he betrayed and he lied. But really, it was all the other times that he was lying, just like Rand Paul and the rest of them. And just like John Fetterman is doing here. No one should ever doubt this for a single second, not for one moment. This Fetterman, Protect ICE, is an act. And I'm going to get a lot of crap on it because, how many people that I see on our side were reposting and sharing and bragging about it? And, oh, yeah, Fetterman, he's so based because he said the things we wanted. But it's all talk. Never doubt me for a single second. It is talk. And when push comes to shove, when it comes down to the votes, watch and you will see that I am right. Just like he did every single chance he's had to vote. When it mattered, Fetterman voted with the Democrats. When it didn't matter, he would pretend to vote with the Republicans, and then he would pretend that he would use that to pretend that he's a moderate. And Democrats on the House and the Republicans, the rhinos, they do this all the time too. Because they don't tell you a lot of times the House is that there's two different votes. There's one to bring it to the floor, and then there's one to actually make it law. So a lot of times what will happen is the Democrats, the ones who are in very weak seats that could get flipped, when the Democrats know that they can't win, they will let them vote in either one or two or both of those votes with the Republicans. So then they can go back and they can go to their districts and say, see, I'm bipartisan. See, look at these bills. I voted with the Republicans. I voted against my own party. It's the same old act, same old fiction that it always was. And they think that they can keep getting away with it. And unfortunately, it's happening again today. And I don't care how much crap I get for it. This is not that hard to read if you follow politics. This is 100% how it works. Fetterman is lying. And the Democrats, they, of course, are very much against everything that ICE stands for, meaning that they want the illegal aliens to come here, and they want them to become citizens, either now through a pathway to citizenship or later through their kids and abusing the amendments to our Constitution of birthright citizenship. But ICE got a huge boost from the big, beautiful bill. And in this big, beautiful bill, you see why the Democrats hate it is because it enforces our laws. And it empowers ICE and DHS and the Border Patrol to build a wall and to start deporting all these illegal immigrants. And they just got a huge thing. Let's see if I can find real quick because I didn't write that number down. Let's place it. But they got a big boost from, I think this is it right here. Yeah, there it is. So you can see it. So they got a huge boost from the big, beautiful bill. And in this big, beautiful bill, they have $6.15 billion now for hiring. That's going to bring in over 3,000 border agents, over 5,000 CBP officers, and over 200 air and marine agents. This is a huge investment into our country, and this is just getting started. We're going to see a lot more facilities getting built, and I hope these facilities follow like Florida, where they have a runway right on the prison. And then they can go in, and it looks like in Florida that they're going to deputize judges. And so they will be able to bring people in a few days, have their due process, quote unquote, and then out the door they go. This is the way. This is what I voted for. Is this what you voted for? I know I'm loving it, and I hope it continues because they're getting these violent, dangerous criminals out of our country. And I also want to be very clear about this because Donald Trump has also been very clear about this as well. But they keep trying to change the two into two separate issues. So they'll try to say that one, you can't deport illegal criminals because they're just dreamers. And then once it gets busted that these are very violent criminals into this country, well, then the Democrats try to move the goalposts back. Well, I'm not talking about the ones that commit crimes here, they're going to say. I'm just talking about the ones, that didn't commit crimes, ignoring the fact that entering our country illegally is a crime in itself. And we're going to jump ahead a little bit. See, where do I got that? I don't think I have that one loaded up. Is it in here? Nope, it is not in this one. We had one where Fox, where they were talking about how this was, they were trying to push this goalpost back. And same with CNN and same with MSNBC. And then they're trying to demonize law enforcement, and they're calling them fascists or calling them Nazis or calling them the Gestapo, all because the Democrats are trying to cause so much pain to these officers that they refuse to enforce the law. So that when ICE and DHS and the Border Patrol, they go and they hire new agents, the agents don't want to take the job because they're scared for their families. See, this is actual political violence. But now it's caused them that they have to now wear masks, even the extreme heat, to protect themselves. And the Democrats, when they're going through all this trying to doxing, we can see what happens to these ICE agents as crime and violence against these ICE agents has skyrocketed. So this is in California, again, where they're going through and they're going after these illegal aliens, and they went after this farm to arrest and deport illegal aliens, which is the law. You had protesters show up, and protesters started trying to get violent with law enforcement. I'm waiting for the Democrats to come up and say that, no violence against law enforcement. Do you think that we will see that? Do you think they'll tell these protesters? Do you think they will call them domestic terrorists? Do you think they will call them the people that are attacking these police officers? Do you think the Democrats will call them a threat to our democracy? I'm waiting for Hakeem Jeffries. I'm waiting for Chuck Schumer. I'm waiting for Jasmine Crockett, right, or AOC to say that the law is the law and that you don't assault police officers. Where's MSNBC to show 24/7? Where's CNN to show what these violent criminals are trying to do to these police officers? Where's the mayor like Karen Bass when she's lying straight to your face and saying that these protests in LA were peaceful until the Trump Border Patrol and the National Guard and the Marines showed up? Of course, we have video to show that they are lying, but they continue to think that they can lie to the American people and then wonder why they're all the way down to 17%. So these protesters got so violent with these ICE agents that they were trying to block the road. And then to put a cherry on top of all this, they were using Mexican flags to try to jam in the wheels and break windshields and disrupt law enforcement. You know what I say? If you do that, you go to prison for a very long time. And then we had a video, which I wasn't able to upload because it came out during commercial breaks. So TikTok has joined the stream. So it's great to have you guys with us now as we've added you on in some other places over to the CASHLOREN show. But during commercial break, most of what I do is I check comments and then I will go in and I'll check news to see if anything breaks, because sometimes stories will break right in the middle of the show coming out. And this is one here. So this is at this California raid. And now it shows that apparently it looks like that these Democrats, not the Democrats themselves, but these people who are protesting for the Democrats, that they just tried to, looks like they shot or they pulled a gun on agents, and that they ended up being taken down, it looks like from the film, and being arrested. As I'm trying to look at it as the show's going live. But this is what happens. Okay, when the Democrats dog whistle for violence, when they call police officers Nazis, and when they call them fascists, and when they call them domestic terrorists, and when they call them a threat to our democracy, when they say all these things, they know exactly what they're doing. When Maxine Waters, when she goes in and she says, I'm not calling for civil war, but if you try to enforce our laws, that's going to cause a civil war. See how they dog whistle? And then when the violence happens, they pretend that they're not for it, when they know exactly what they're doing. But it's just getting started, is the stories that they don't want to cover, like this one here. So ICE arrested an MS-3 kingpin, wanted for 5 murders. He was in El Salvador most wanted, but Joe Biden's administration let him come into our country, even though he was a top 100 wanted list, and released him into our country. Now he's getting arrested and he's going back to prison where he belongs. And these are the criminals, and these are the people that the Democrats are trying to protect. When they lie and they call them dreamers, when they lie and they call them, undocumented workers, when they lie and they call them, I think it was the most woke one I've heard, was undocumented citizens, whatever the heck that means. They're making up words to fight back. And now we also have, we're starting to be able to prove that what we were saying all along with the Democrats, we're giving your tax dollars to illegal aliens. And they called us liars, and they said they were making it up. But as it turns out, it wasn't us lying, it was them lying again. And of course, what they try to do is they try to lie and say that, it's against the law to use Medicaid again for illegal aliens. Which is, yes, see, that is true, but they marry it to a lie. Because law is only good if you can enforce them. Let's go all the way down to a speeding ticket. Let's say speeding is 60 and everyone's driving 70. Okay, if nobody's getting pulled over, is 60 really the law? Or if laws actually stop crime, then why do we need police officers? And why do we need jails? If you just had to write a law and say, stealing is illegal, then nobody would steal if it worked that way. But somehow Democrats now want to pretend, because there's laws on the books, that they're never broken when it fits their narrative. And to cover that, because here's Scott Jennings, he's explaining how the CBO identifies that 1.4 million illegals were on Medicaid, just like we said. And the one way they do is they ignore the laws. The other way they do it is that they will go and they will use state funds to pay for this. And then they will backfill those state funds with the federal funds. And that's how they work around it. So here's Scott Jennings blowing up the Democrat lying congressman.
His political analysis is wrong. I don't think it's unpopular at all to try to reform an entitlement program, to save it for the people who need it, to keep illegal aliens from getting welfare benefits they shouldn't be getting, to encourage people to go to work. I don't think these things should be shied away from by Republicans.
None of that is true. First of all, I think Medicaid
It's exactly true. It's exactly what's in the bill.
Yeah, he's right. It is exactly true. But they're trying to have it two ways. Okay, because they're trying to say that it's not happening. Well, if it's not happening, then why can't you investigate it? That's the first problem. Because they don't want you to investigate because they know what will come out, which is exactly what was in the CBO, which is when the Democrats were using the CBO to try to say that, Donald Trump is going to add all this debt to the national debt. and how bad this is going to be. This is all based on the CBO findings. So when the CBO says what the Democrats want to hear, all of a sudden they're pretending the CBO is really important. But now when the CBO says, yes, there is 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid, all of a sudden the Democrats are lying to your face again and pretending, yeah, you're supposed to believe the CBO here, but you're not supposed to believe the CBO there.
Federal law prohibits undocumented immigrants
Then why are
to receive Medicaid
1.4
benefits.
million on it? Why are
That's a figment of your imagination.
It's a figment of the CBO's documents.
Let me explain the facts.
It's in the CBO documents.
I'll explain the facts.
Is it or not?
Let me explain. It's not, actually.
No, you are lying.
No, that is not. It is not true.
That's, as he points to him, you're lying. That's blatantly lying there. And then here is the part where it shows right in the CBO that it says that.
Hold on, guys.
Nice and highlighted. For those that can see it, is just pointing out that the CBO says 1.4 million illegal aliens are using Medicaid. This doesn't include like Social Security. And it doesn't include like all the other lies they've told. Like you remember back in 2024 in North Carolina hit the hurricane and they found out FEMA didn't have money because they were giving it to all these illegal aliens to put them in hotels and buy them food. And of course, what the Democrats do then is they lied right to your face. But we have the internet. And what was truly amazing about this, and one of the many reasons why they've lost so much influence, is that the Democrats just earlier that year weren't even trying to hide it. And they were on C-SPAN asking Mayorkas to give them FEMA money to house illegal aliens publicly on C-SPAN. But when that blows up in their face, they're trying to pretend that it was never, ever happening. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more as I'm way over on another break. We'll be back after this greedy profit break. This is the CASHLOREN Show. Let's see if I can push the right buttons this time. Hooray. Welcome back, everybody, to CASHLOREN Show. We make liberals cry tears that are saltier than you-know-who's fries. And the Democrats, as they continue to lose every single battle that they're trying to fight, all because they're on the wrong side of every single issue. I mean, name one issue the Democrats are on the right side of that the American voters would vote for. They can't name a single one. They can't name it on the economy. They can't name it on immigration. They can't name it on women's rights. They can't even name it for working class Americans anymore, which is what the Democrats were built on, which that was another lie too, but we can get into that a whole different time. As we have now is the Democrats, the one thing that they love is absolute control. And to gain this absolute control over you, you have to voluntarily give up your rights. But nobody would willingly do that in a normal situation. So instead, they have to try to threaten you to get you to give up your rights to them in exchange for safety. But any that gives up their rights for safety, the end of that is always not safety. It's always a totalitarian state. That's why it's so important for our side to fight back and to save our country from the left. And the main way that they love to do this more often than any other is that they love to do it through their climate change. Right? As they try to tell you, oh yeah, climate change is so bad and so, evil. And, if you don't give up all your rights, you're not going to have a planet. And think about all your children and think about all your children's children. And, they just won't be able to go outside anymore. And all the, water will seep up over the oceans. And now there won't be any, beaches left. And all this land that's on the edge will be gone. And California will be up in Washington. I mean, which of these climate change things did they tell you that you had 10 years that you had to deal with? Well, it was going to happen. For my generation, it was the ozone layer, right? We had to give up fossil fuels or the ozone layer was just going to keep getting bigger and it was going to burn us all out. And that was back in the 90s. It hasn't happened. See, that their 10-year window is devious enough because it's far enough out that it's really hard to prove. But once it happens, then you just move on. I mean, it's amazing how well it has worked, even though the lobby for the climate change has been wrong on every single issue. And it's always their solution is to tax you more money. And then, this says, right, no hairspray, no aerosol. I remember that one too. Yeah, that was another big one. I think right as I was leaving school. Then I also had a teacher who was lecturing men because if we were shaving our face, that she thought we should turn off the water every time we reach up the shaver to our face. And then we should turn the water back on, rinse it. The water, the most abundant resource on this planet. That's how insane these woke liberals are. But they continue to go on. They continue to try to take away all your rights with climate change. And that's really what it is all about. All right, climate change is a Trojan horse for communism. It takes everything that the liberals want. It takes all your rights. It takes all that tax money. It takes all that regulations. It puts them in one nice box and wraps it up with a pretty liberal bow. I mean, you have to give up everything for this so-called climate change. It's always their answer, right? Every time something bad happens, every time a weather event happens, they try to tax you more, they try to add more regulations, and they try to take away more of your rights. And then on the other side of that is if climate change is so bad and so dangerous, then why are Democrats buying land in sub-sea levels? Why do they live on the beaches? Why are they in Hawaii? If climate change is so dangerous to humanity, then why are they flying around in private jets? Why are they living in mansions? If this is such an existential threat to the American people or to the world overall, then why don't they show by example? Why don't they have just one small house? Or, why don't they all live in their little communist utopia together? Why don't they all have their nice little boxes, these little communes that they can all live in? They can share a sink and they can share a bathroom. Right? You can have Joe Biden, you can have Barack Hussein Obama, you can have John Kerry, right? You can have Bernie Sanders, you can have Jasmine Crockett, you can have all those other people, right, leading by example. I mean, this is such an existential threat. If this is the ending of our way of life, then why aren't they taking it serious? But of course, you all know the answer to that because they don't believe it at all. And if it was really a problem, that's the direction they would move. They wouldn't move into what brings on communism, taxation, and regulation. And the American people aren't buying it either. And this is from more CNN fake news, who they getting absolutely shocked and amazed as they put up this poll here where they asked the American people, and this is over from 1989, where it says greatly worried about climate change. And it was at 35% in 1989. By 2000, it had gone up to 40%. 2022, 46%. But now all the way down to 2025, all the way back down to 40%. Gee. And they can't understand it. We've been lying, the fake news about climate change for decades. Why don't people believe us? I mean, they are the liberal elites, right? They are smarter than you. They have Ivy League degrees, right? They are born to rule over you. So they're so much smarter and they're so much brighter. Then why aren't you believing what they tell you to believe? But there's something about being American. There's something about our freedoms that you don't want to give up so easily. And there's a certain level of independent thinking like you have and other conversationalists have, where unfortunately for the Democrats, we tend to think for ourselves. And then they've used these experts to lie for so many generations that now people don't believe these experts anymore. And that caused them to lose all their influence. But rather than stepping back and saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't lie so much to the American people. Maybe we should go in and maybe we should actually just tell them the truth. That'll be the day when the Democrats tell the truth. I'd really love to see that happen someday. Their entire platform is built on lying to you, the American people. It will never, ever happen. But we dare to dream. Now we will go back and they just can't stand it. Right? It will be MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, other Times, Washington Post, Political or Axios, all of them that are all Team Democrat, all of them that are bagged for the DNC. They can't understand why they've lied to you so many times that you won't believe them anymore. I mean, why you won't believe them when they cry wolf, and why independent creators are growing at such a rapid rate. They're sinking with the ship. They're all the way in. I don't know how many of them are going to go under, but I don't think many of them are going to make it through. And then you have independent creators getting bigger and bigger, and then they can no longer, if any, Trump showed anything else, they can no longer swing elections like they used to be able to do. They used to be able to sit there and lie to you and get away with it. And because most of you didn't know any better. Because the only way to get information was from the mainstream media, or it was from newspapers. But now that you can get information from everyone else, see, a lot of you thought just like you do now. That's the change isn't the way people think. What has changed is how people can get information. So for the longest time, you would go home and you only had one way to get information. Either you'd go onto the news or you get it from the newspaper, the one way being the fake news networks. And so many of you wouldn't agree with what they're saying, but you're going, if they're all saying the same thing, right? CNN's telling us this, and MSNBC is telling us the same thing, and we get our morning paper, and our morning paper will be LA Times or Washington Post or the New York Times or any of the others, right? They're all saying the same thing, then maybe I'm the weird one. Maybe I'm the one that's off. But that's just not true. See, you were the majority this entire time. These illiberal elites, they were the minority. And it's just that most people, they did not know the difference because they didn't have a really good way to connect with each other. And then as the podcast rise and independent creators rise, as they got more and more popular, then the Democrats and the Uniparty tried to shut them down with misinformation or disinformation or hate speech, and then try to shut up the truth that they didn't want you to hear. See, it was them who were the misinformation. It was them who were spreading hate speech. It was them that were spreading disinformation this entire time. It was just that you didn't know about it. So when they would lie over and over again, they would not give you the facts, or they'd tell you partial truths and then marry it to a lie so you would come to the wrong conclusion. You had no way to counter it. And so many of you would just think, well, maybe I'm the oddball. Or maybe I'm the weird one. Maybe most people don't think like me. Maybe most people don't want a great United States. But that is not true. Not in the least bit. And see, we live in the greatest country this world has ever known. And right now, it doesn't matter what your skin color is, and it doesn't matter what your background is. You have more opportunity here in the United States than anybody has ever had in the history of the world. I mean, it is truly mind-boggling in just a couple hundred years how much we have progressed as a human society. Where however long you want to think that the human race has been around, however many thousands of years or 10,000s of years, whatever that number is, it's only been a couple hundred years and less. We've had electricity, we've had cars, now we have the internet, we have cell phones, and now we have AI. I mean, you have access to the world's knowledge in your fingertips. And most use this to make stupid dance videos. But there's generation after generation after generation that would kill for the single advantages that we have that's taken for granted every single day. Whether it be running water, be electricity, be AC, being able to go anywhere in the world within a couple of days, being able to communicate with anybody in the world almost instantly. That is brought to us because of the United States. That is brought to us because of the merit system. That is brought to us because of capitalism. See, the drive for profit is what drives our country to progress. It's what takes the human race and makes it better. And with that, we're out of time. The rest of these stories have to go back in the stack. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate each and every one of you. All of you mean a lot to me. If you can, take a moment, share the show, and help us spread an American First message. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm CASHLOREN, and God bless the USA. Well, independent thinkers, we have come to the top of another hour. The rest of the stories will have to go back in the stack. If you enjoyed this content, take a moment, hit the subscribe, turn on notifications. Most importantly, share a conservative message with your friends and family. We will be back Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on the CASHLOREN Show. We will go and we will expose and fight the fake news networks who have been getting away with lying to you for decades. Our content will always be free, but if you'd like to support more, you can do so monetarily over at locals at the Cash Loren Show. And there's great rewards and benefits for doing so. For only about a cup of coffee a month, you will receive exclusive articles and you'll have your name at the end of the video, just like these other fine patriots have. If that sounds interesting to you, go over to locals right now for just a cup of coffee a month and help independent creators stay free, keep the lights on, and continue to expose the fake news networks. We'll see you again on the next episode. This is the Cash Loren Show.